International relations often resemble a complex dance, with threats and responses setting the rhythm. This intricate choreography involves nations maneuvering to protect their interests while projecting power and influence on the global stage. One country might threaten another with economic sanctions or military action. These threats are often strategic, aimed at compelling the other nation to change its behavior or policies. The threatened country then faces a choice: back down or escalate the situation. This decision is rarely straightforward and involves careful consideration of the potential costs and benefits. This back and forth of threats and responses forms the basis of much of international diplomacy. Each move is calculated, with nations weighing their options and anticipating the reactions of others. Understanding this dynamic is crucial to navigating the global stage. Diplomats and leaders must be adept at reading the intentions of other nations and responding appropriately. Imagine a scenario where country A threatens country B with trade restrictions if country B doesn't comply with certain demands. Such threats can have significant economic implications, affecting industries, jobs, and the overall economy. Country B can choose to give in to the pressure and avoid the economic pain. This might involve making concessions or altering policies to align with country A's demands. Alternatively, country B can stand its ground and risk facing the consequences of country A's threat. This path requires resilience and the ability to withstand potential economic or political fallout. This constant interplay of pressure and response shapes the relationships between nations. It is a delicate balance where each action can lead to a series of reactions, creating a complex web of interactions. The stakes are often high. Missteps can lead to economic downturns, military conflicts, or long-term diplomatic rifts. Threats might involve military action, economic sanctions, or diplomatic isolation. Each type of threat carries its own set of risks and potential outcomes. Responses can range from appeasement to counter-threats, each carrying its own set of risks and rewards. The choice of response depends on the nation's strategic goals and the perceived credibility of the threat. This intricate dance of threats and responses underscores the delicate balance of power in the international system. It is a game of strategy where every move is scrutinized and every response is measured. Ultimately, the success of any threat depends on a number of factors, including the credibility of the threat, the resolve of both parties, and the potential consequences of escalation. The international community watches closely, as the outcomes can influence global stability. The dance of threats and responses is a high-stakes game where miscalculations can have far-reaching consequences. It is a testament to the complexity and fragility of international relations, where every decision can alter the course of history. In international relations, it's common to assume countries act rationally. This assumption forms the bedrock of many theories and strategies in global politics. This means they prioritize their own interests and make decisions based on logic and a cost-benefit analysis. Essentially, countries are seen as entities that weigh their options carefully before taking any action. A rational actor, when faced with a threat, will calculate the potential costs and benefits of different courses of action. They will consider the long-term and short-term impacts of their decisions. If a country threatens military action but knows it will suffer unacceptable losses, it's acting irrationally. The potential for significant damage and loss of life makes such threats less credible. A rational actor, understanding the potential for devastating consequences, would be unlikely to follow through on such a threat. The risk of mutual destruction often outweighs any potential gains. This is because a rational actor always seeks to maximize its own gains while minimizing potential losses. They aim to achieve their objectives without incurring unnecessary costs. Therefore, in a purely rational world, threats like these become meaningless. The opposing side would recognize the bluff and understand that the threat is not credible. The threatened country knows the other side won't risk self-destruction. They can confidently call the bluff, knowing that the rational actor will back down. They'll call the bluff and escalate the situation, confident the initial threat is empty. This dynamic creates a complex interplay of strategy and psychology in international relations. This dynamic highlights a key challenge in international relations, maintaining a credible deterrent while also acting rationally. Balancing these two aspects is crucial for stability. This understanding of rationality forms the basis for much of international relations theory. Scholars and policymakers use these principles to predict and influence global events. However, the real world is rarely so clear-cut. The complexities of human behavior and national interests often defy simple rational calculations. Emotions, miscalculations, and domestic political considerations can all influence a country's decision-making process. These factors add layers of unpredictability to international relations, making it a constantly evolving field. Enter the Madman theory. This theory suggests that a leader can gain an advantage by appearing irrational, even unhinged. By cultivating an image of unpredictability and a willingness to act against their own interests, they might intimidate rivals into concessions. The logic is simple. If a leader is perceived as irrational, their threats carry more weight. Opponents might believe they're actually crazy enough to follow through, even if it means mutually assured destruction. This fear, the theory argues, can make adversaries more likely to back down and give the madman what they want. History offers glimpses of this theory in action. Some argue that Richard Nixon's Madman theory during the Vietnam War, where he deliberately cultivated an image of unpredictability, contributed to concessions from North Vietnam. By making the enemy believe he was capable of anything, Nixon aimed to force a more favorable peace deal. However, the effectiveness of this strategy is debatable. While appearing irrational might work in the short term, it can also backfire spectacularly. The line between calculated madness and genuine instability can be blurry, and miscalculations can have disastrous consequences. The madman theory has a significant flaw. It often overlooks the opponent's perspective. This theory, which suggests that acting unpredictably can intimidate opponents into submission, fails to consider how the opponent might adapt over time. If a leader consistently acts erratically and makes empty threats, their credibility erodes over time. The initial shock value of their unpredictability diminishes, and opponents start to see through the facade. Opponents, even if initially intimidated, will eventually realize the madman is all bark and no bite. They begin to understand that the threats are hollow, and that the erratic behavior is a tactic rather than a genuine risk. Imagine a schoolyard bully who constantly threatens smaller children but never follows through. At first, the children might be scared, but over time, they will see that the bully's threats are empty. Eventually, the other children will realize the bully is all talk and will no longer be intimidated. They might even start to stand up to the bully, knowing that the threats are just bluster. The same principle applies in international relations. When a country repeatedly makes threats, it doesn't back up. Its perceived irrationality loses its power. Other nations start to see the pattern and recognize the bluff. If a country repeatedly makes threats it doesn't back up, its perceived irrationality loses its power. The international community becomes desensitized to the threats and starts to ignore them. Once the bluff is called, the madman faces a dilemma. They can either back down and appear weak, undermining their future credibility, or they can follow through on their threat, potentially leading to a disastrous outcome they never intended. They can either back down and appear weak, undermining their future credibility, or follow through on their threat, potentially leading to a disastrous outcome they never intended. Following through on a threat can lead to unintended consequences, escalating conflicts and causing more harm than good. This is the inherent risk of the madman theory. This catch-22 highlights the inherent riskiness of relying on perceived irrationality as a negotiating tactic. The leader must carefully navigate this delicate balance to avoid losing credibility or causing unintended harm. In essence, the success of the madman theory hinges on a delicate balance. The leader must appear unpredictable and dangerous enough to instill fear, but not so unhinged that their threats are dismissed as empty bluster. The leader must appear unpredictable and dangerous enough to instill fear, but not so unhinged that their threats are dismissed as empty bluster. This requires a careful and strategic approach. But if the leader goes too far, they risk being seen as a joke, with their threats dismissed as mere bluster. This undermines their position and makes it harder to be taken seriously in the future. It's a high-risk strategy with no guarantee of success. The madman theory is a gamble, and like all gambles, it can either pay off big or result in a significant loss. Sometimes the most powerful tool in negotiation is unpredictability. When you keep your opponent guessing, you maintain control of the situation. It's like a chess game where your next move is always a surprise. By being unpredictable, you create opportunities for yourself and keep the other party on their toes. This strategy can lead to unexpected advantages, making it a crucial element in the art of negotiation. Feigning irrationality can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it might give you leverage, but on the other, it can backfire spectacularly. If the other party believes you are genuinely irrational, they might take preemptive actions that are detrimental to both sides. The key is to tread carefully, ensuring that your bluff doesn't spiral out of control. When we look at leaders like Trump and Putin, we see the Madman theory in action on the world stage. Both have, at times, portrayed themselves as unpredictable and willing to take extreme measures. This tactic can keep adversaries on their toes, but it also risks escalating conflicts. The balance between strategic unpredictability and outright chaos is delicate and often fraught with danger. Global politics is rarely straightforward. It's a messy arena where rationality and irrationality intermingle. Nations often act in ways that seem irrational on the surface but make sense within their specific contexts. Understanding these nuances is crucial for anyone looking to navigate the complex web of international relations. In a world where perceived irrationality is a common tactic, the challenge lies in discerning genuine threats from bluffs. Effective negotiation requires a keen understanding of human behavior and the ability to read between the lines. By mastering these skills, one can navigate even the most treacherous diplomatic waters with confidence and poise.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.